There are moments in life when shame whispers louder than truth, when wounds we carry make us question our worth. But what if your story, yes, even the messy and perfect parts, could become the very place where healing begins, not just for you, but for others as well? Hi, friends. I'm Jem Fadling, and this is the Unhurried Living Podcast, where we inspire you to rest deeper, live fuller, and lead better. Eryn Eddy Adkins has been building bridges for years, bridges between pain and hope, silence and voice, shame and belovedness. And I know you're going to love hearing from her today. Eryn Eddy Adkins is someone who helps people remember they're worthy of love just as they are. She's the founder of So Worth Loving, a community and clothing brand that has become a lifeline for thousands who are trying to believe the truth about their worth. What started as a simple message on a t-shirt has grown into something so much bigger. She's also the co-host of the God Hears Her podcast with Our Daily Bread Ministries, where she has spent over a decade holding space for real conversations about faith, doubt, and being seen by God. Eryn grew up in the North Georgia mountains, raised by furniture makers, and over the years, she's discovered how powerful it is when we tell the truth about our stories. Not the polished version, but the real one. Today, we talk about what it looks like to move through shame, the importance of telling our stories, and how community can be a place of healing. I think you're going to feel really encouraged by this conversation, so let's get into it. When I go to your website, I see So Worth Loving, which I just love that phrase anyway. So I thought maybe we could just start with a bit of your story. How did this phrase come to be? How did, whatever, if you call it a ministry, I'd love to just hear how that came to be and your story that leads up to it.
Yeah. So I've owned So Worth Loving for going on 15 years. And I really did not set out to start it. I kind of fell into it. Like I just had a curiosity and a passion project. So I offered people, so I guess I should fast forward. I was a musician and I created music that was very uplifting and inspiring. And I wanted to create some sort of fan merch that my fans could identify with and it not be about my face or my name, but it'd be something that's like for them, for their everyday life. And so the phrase So Worth Loving came to my mind, but I really believe it was just God. I think it was divine in his whisper to me to remind people of their worth. And then, I'm 22, 23. So I don't really have a context or comprehension of like what all he was going to be doing till I can look back now. But I started spray painting people's shirts. Actually, they kind of see back there. Those are them. But I started offering I put my home address on my personal music blog and I said, send me a shirt and I'll spray paint your So Worth Loving and I'll mail it back to you for free. Because I had zero money, no investor, none of that. And I mean, I'm sure I say this all the time, but I'm sure if my parents really knew how dark the internet can be, they probably would have just hated that I put my home address on the internet for anybody to come visit me. And people started sending me t-shirts, people from all over the world, from New Zealand to Hawaii, to North Carolina, to Georgia, to California, New York, random people that followed along my music. And this was before like YouTube was really like what it is now. But so you really could go viral very fast because there wasn't a ton of people on it then like there is now. So with my music going viral, I had a lot of following with people wanting to just be reminded of their worth. And so I realized this isn't sustainable. I love doing this. I want to do it for the rest of my life, reminding people of their worth. What should I do? So then I screen printed one t-shirt and then I sold it. And then I sold another version and another version. And then all of a sudden we're selling to all 50 states and 35 countries. And we were on 100 college campuses. And at like the peak, we grew so fast that I didn't realize how, like what this was going to turn into. And it really was a mission field in a sense. I didn't set out to do that. I was just a young girl wanting to remind people of their worth. And then I just respond to the call of people wanting to have conversations about the struggle of believing they're worthy of love. So that's kind of how it got started. And then, we can dig into it more so in
Yeah,
the episode. But
for
yeah.
sure. I love that story. It's like completely, totally like from a seed and very just organic, and it becomes this thing. That's
Yes.
amazing. Oh
Yes,
my
it was.
gosh.
It was. It was like a little baby that birthed, and it was birthed not just by my doing, but really, I think, by the people that were captivated by the message of wanting to believe they're worthy of love. Because what I found in the journey of owning so worth loving is that it's really common to feel that you're not worth loving, but it's uncommon to talk about it. Because if you talk about it, either you're trauma dumping, which is a thing, but you have shame to even discuss it. Um, or you feel like you're broken and you're that thing that made you feel icky, or you don't want to be associated with the things that have hurt you and made you feel unworthy of love, or you feel guilty for the choices that you've made. And that's what I saw with So Worth Loving, was people taking this concept and this idea and it being so much bigger than a t-shirt.
Well, for sure. I mean, I work a lot with women, and I can't think of anyone who doesn't struggle with this, at least at some
Mm-hmm.
level. I mean,
Yeah.
even for me, I think I've shared this story before on this platform, but when I was deep in my therapy in my 40s, I was in this conversation with my therapist about what I deserved.
Mm.
And that was
Mm.
sort of a lit up word for me. What do I deserve? Well, evidently I don't deserve anything, because if you come up through certain streams, there's sort of this worm theology and you're saved by grace. And it's actually good news,
Yeah.
except somehow I had this residue on me that I was somehow, I didn't
Mm.
deserve anything. So when we
Mm.
got to this idea of deserving, he just went down this list. You deserve this, this, and this. I just kept saying no. But the last sentence he said to me
Uh-huh.
was, do you deserve to be loved?
Mm.
And I couldn't at that point say yes, which I hear that now. This is however many years later, 15, 20 years later. And I go, oh, that poor version of
Mm.
me. Right.
Mm.
But it's very personal to me, this conversation, because there was a time when I
Yeah.
didn't feel that I was worth being loved. Now here I am. I'm in my 40s. I'd been married for 20 years. I had
Mhm.
kids. I had love in my life. But when someone said, do you deserve to be loved? I couldn't say yes.
Mm.
Now, of course, we did the work, and I came out on the other end having a different understanding of things. Good news. Yay. But this is everywhere, right?
Yes. Well, I love how honest that is, because I think I go through spouts where I get an autopilot and I live my life not believing I'm worthy of love. And then I get realigned, and
Yeah.
then I truck along, and then I start believing this tiny quiet lie. And then I get off course, and then I
Yeah.
get back on. And I feel like that's just so common. It's like, for me, it's not an arrival. And I always thought that it was like, when I started going to therapy, I think when I was like 19 or 20, and it was rooted out of like a relationship I had with one of my siblings. And then I also, you'll appreciate this. I'm laughing because it's so sweet and innocent, why I went to therapy. But it was that I realized my former husband, I was like, oh my gosh, what if he dies one day? And like, I had this fear of death and loving someone. And that's what got me into therapy. But along the way, and after my divorce, and then going through a bunch of just poor choices, and then also even enabling some things within my marriage, I realized, wow, I never arrived. Owning So Worth Loving, people thought I was this like professional self-worth girl. And it was like, no, I think it was actually deeply rooted in me not knowing my worth and being in awe of those that can say it out loud, at least, and be brave about it, and then wrestle with what that looks like and learning the truth of it and trying to figure out how to apply that on a daily basis. So yeah, I think it's everywhere, and I think it's never an arrival. I think that we just have one more thing that we can heal from or acknowledge or reassess and realign again. But I see it all the time, even with the God Hears Our podcast. I'm a co-host to. Women are wrestling with believing that, does God really hear me? And the foundation of that question is, I think, do you believe you're worthy of him hearing you? And so I think, yeah, I struggle still daily in that, like the thorn in my side.
Well, I love that you really drew us back to the idea of process.
Mm,
We're always in process, and there's stops and starts and forward and backward and
mm,
all of that. So I think that's always good to remember, because then
yeah,
that's a journey of grace that
yeah,
you can continue on that path.
yeah. And
So
it's so hard.
yeah.
Like, because I don't know if you struggle with this, but I would love to know. I struggle with like the shame of like whether I compare my suffering with other people. So then I feel privileged or entitled. But then I avoid the things that, whether it's words that I'm saying to myself or mistakes that I've made that, I've tried to stop shaming myself, but then I shame myself for shaming myself. um, but so I want to go back to what I was originally saying, which is, I mean, how do you process or walk towards the struggle of believing you're worthy of love when you can compare yourself to other people's suffering?
Yeah. That's a hard thing, because I do live in the United States, and there's a lot going on right now. Everyone's watching it in the news. And yet I have a kind of stature here. I'm middle class to upper middle class, even though we run a nonprofit.
Right.
So, but I've been through a lot of traumatic experiences over the course of my life. I could list them all.
Hmm.
And yet you do end up wanting to compare, right? Because it's not as bad as so and so, or
Yeah.
it's not as bad as this person who I know, or maybe a person I don't know, but they're in another country and there's a whole different kind of trauma going on. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I do struggle sometimes,
Mm,
actually, sometimes even sharing my thing,
mm.
because it doesn't feel worthy of being expressed,
Right.
because it's not as bad as it could be, even though it does affect me deeply.
Hmm.
Is that what you're
Yes.
talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I struggle with that all the time. And I realign and I try to validate. And then I still find myself going back to that. And I think if I'm feeling that way, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that probably also have felt that way too. Because I feel like that's a very common thing of, especially with social media now and how you can
Oh,
really access people's stories and what is troublesome in their life, things that are really heartbreaking that they're going through. It's
yeah.
so easy to invalidate yourself to where I think that's what we were talking about earlier about like, I have to come back and realign myself again. Maybe some of those things are the things that are impacting me to veer off. It's the comparison. Maybe it's imposter syndrome. Maybe it's a combo of all of those different things.
Yeah, that the comparison trap, that's what makes it really hard for me to be on social media. I am still there. I've downshifted to just a couple, but I have to tell you, that's the one that gets me,
Mm,
is other people having something I evidently don't have or need or something.
mm.
And it'll send me down the spiral as fast as anything.
So
And
true.
so it's a real, if I am going to stay on there and look around, then I have to make sure that I'm remaining aware,
Mm,
and that I don't get trapped in the comparison or go into some sort of downward spiral. So
that's so easy to do.
it's
Yeah.
so easy to do. Well, I wonder, it looks like, if you get on your website, it sounds like storytelling. If you talk to, for storytelling is a big part of what you do. So maybe let's talk about that
Yeah.
for a minute.
Oh.
What have you learned about the power of storytelling when it comes to
Mm.
this topic we're talking about, which is worthiness?
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
So I remember I wrote my first book, So Worth Loving, and I was talking with my agent about writing. And my agent and my editor, they were both giving me feedback that I speak from like a 30,000-foot view.
Mm,
Now, So Worth Loving, to give you some context for anybody listening, So Worth Loving, we would share people's stories on our Tumblr blog of people wrestling with believing they're worthy of love on very specific things that they've gone through, whether it's breakup, whether it's a dad that has withheld the affection whether it's a boyfriend that has called you thunder thighs, whether it's that one moment shaped the trajectory of 10 years of, believing you're unworthy of love or mistakes that you've made. So some context, that's the story of those are the stories that we would share on social. So then when it came to me sharing my own story with So Worth Loving and just my journey with believing that I'm worthy of love, my agent and my editor both were like, Eryn, you speak so 30,000 foot view, 50,000 foot view. We got to get you down into like the 2 feet lane. And I was nervous to do that because I thought the more specific I am, the more irrelevant I am. And they were like, actually, the more specific you are, the more universal you are. And I believe within storytelling, the details matter because when you hear somebody's story, like the true raw feelings, and you have never experienced that before in your life, you still can connect with them deeper than anybody that gives you a very, high level surfaced perspective. And so I think storytelling is just so crucial. Like the details of your story are so important. The things that you probably shame or leave out because you're like, that's so much detail. I just want to validate it's so important because when you share detail, you're actually connecting to somebody that may actually have that same detail of feeling, maybe not the same story, but the same feeling. And that's what I believe can heal parts of like wounds within us. And that help us get back to or become better in who we are, who we're made to be.
For sure. Well, I mean, that is classic. Henry Nouwen was one of the first people I heard say that which is most personal, that which is most personal is most universal. And I've noticed as well, when we're sending out our emails to our community, when I have the most vulnerable kind of post is when I get the most responses. I think because again, the person they don't have to have lived what you lived, but like you said, they know the feeling that is down in those depths.
Yeah.
And we can connect there. And I think people are longing for connection, especially these days, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think that's why people click into social media, because I think that they feel connected to something, whether they're escaping their external world to go into somebody else's world. It's longing for connection. Either way, whether it's an escape, you're still pursuing connection. It's just different kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I wonder if we could. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I was going to circle back around to, let's talk about shame a little more. How exciting.
Oh, yay. I love shame. Let's go.
We don't have to laugh at it. Maybe we're laughing because it's probably uncomfortable. That's so
Listen,
funny.
if you don't laugh, you cry. I'm very experienced in shame. So
I'm realizing for myself that shame is an underlying thing that I don't often recognize, but it sort of comes out in other ways that I wouldn't have labeled shame, but I can tell that underneath. I can't think of an example right now, but that's been brewing for me a little bit lately about how, because I have the kind of temperament where I wouldn't tend to focus on stuff like that and say, oh, I'm in shame right now. I know some people are like, oh, I love my shame because it just feels like a nice blanket or whatever. I don't have that.
I don't know if I feel that way about shame.
No, but you know what I'm saying? But in the feelings and in the thing. So for a long time, if you would have asked me if I was ashamed, I probably would have said no, but I think it was just because I was unaware. But on that topic, I'm wondering how you help or walk with people as they're moving from shame or even a lack of a sense of voice. How do you journey with people? Because we know that that's a process. It's messy. It's long. What does that look like?
Yeah. Yes, I have a very vivid memory of when I was able to identify that I have a lot of shame. And it was when I was newly divorced and this man that used to be my youth pastor growing up when I was younger told me that he didn't believe I should have a microphone anywhere, like on stage or within podcasting or anything, because I would normalize divorce for young women. And I had already carried the shame of my divorce and my choices attached to some of the reasons for the divorce. Some of it was, what my former husband chose, and some of it were my choices, and it was just a mess. And so when he said that to me, it wasn't like it was like, oh, woe is me, I can't have a microphone. It was that I heard, like, you will not be able to influence people because of your story now, and you are unredeemable. That's what I heard. That's what shame said to me. And I believed it. And I remember living under that, thinking the best I've ever lived is in past time. And there's no way that God can redeem my story because it's too messy. And shame really wanted to keep me in that headspace. He really wanted to keep me in those thoughts. And my choices reflected that. So I would go into relationships and dating after divorce, not believing I was worthy of love and making choices out of this like blanket of shame of believing this is what I deserve because of what this is my story now. And instead of believing that I could have something good or healthy or like a experience with marriage differently than what I had in my past. And so from that, one of my mentors actually called me and she said, hey, I have a friend that's walking through a divorce and I don't know what exactly to say. What would be some advice you would give to somebody that's a friend that's a friend to somebody walking through this? And I told her, I said, the likely of her sharing or the likely of her saying to herself over and over again, shameful statements. If you don't stay, then you're this. If you don't do this, then he will not or she will not. Or, like whatever it is that your brain says, if not, then this. And this thing is like a shaming statement. You're not pretty, you're ugly, you're selfish, you're self-righteous, you're the worst of the worst of the worst, no future, whatever that is. They've already been going through that for a long time. The likely of that is very high. So to walk with somebody that's experiencing something tragic that they've become aware of and they feel shame of it is to never should them. Like, don't say, well, you should. If you don't, then X, just don't should them, because should creates shame. And what that friend needs is just space. And so I encourage people to give whoever's walking through something really tragic or hard and they have a lot of shame, to just give space for them to just be, because they're probably either running away from it, they're in shame of it, or they're maybe doing some work and facing it and then there's shame. Whichever direction that they're going at that intersection, there's shame there. And so they don't need to be told that they should do these things, but they just need the space of a friend to listen. So that's what I would say to that.
So good. Shoulding leads to shaming.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bumper sticker.
That is a bumper sticker. That's a t-shirt. Let's make one.
That's a t-shirt. You don't have a t-shirt that says that?
No, I don't. I'm going to make you one though and send it to you. We'll have our own little club. Anybody listening, email Jem and we'll make the shirt for you.
Oh my goodness. It's so good though, right? I think about this kind of thing a lot because really, if we're going to make change, at Unhurried Living, we care a lot about transformation. That's really the heartbeat of what we're about. It's not about, being slow. Unhurried sounds like we're all about being slow. But what we're really saying is there is time for you to give attention to that which is most important. And this can affect you and God and you and others and you and your work. Right. And so, but if you're going to have this, what Peterson called a long obedience in the same direction, it's a lifetime. Isn't that a great thing?
Oh, I love that.
A long obedience in the same direction. It's one of my favorite lines because it's an invitation to process. And again, when you're talking about shoulding leads to shaming, there isn't a form of, not grace that helps us stay on the path.
Yeah.
Grace keeps us moving in a steady pace so that we can make the change we need to make. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say, because shoulding is not grace.
No, if anything, it just keeps you bound up in negative thinking. And I think that that's where I found myself, that I was I allowed myself to be disqualified by somebody's opinion and judgment. And I think, and I lived in that for a while. And then to know that there is, like, you can walk towards, like, I had things to be ashamed of. Like I was ashamed of the choices I made. But the difference between being ashamed and like having this conviction, like healthy conviction, once I realized I can have healthy conviction and still be healed and not have to punish myself and shame and should myself, that was so freeing to me. Because I think sometimes what we do is we feel like we need to continue to punish ourselves to show ourselves that we really mean it, that we really, like, I felt like I was like,
Right.
I really mean it, that I feel really bad about this. So let me continue to shame myself and make myself feel bad, which is why I say, like, with your friends, they're probably doing that too. They may not even recognize it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really easy to have unhelpful self-talk.
Oh,
It's like our brain just wants to go there and wants to just beat us down.
yeah. So true.
Well, I know that you're an inspiration to many young women, but I'm wondering for you, are there women in your life who inspire your own journey?
Ah,
And what are they
yes.
like and what do you learn from them?
Yes. I'm so glad you asked that question. So I'm very passionate about finding women around you that can speak life into you that are outside of your mom or your grandma or your
Mhm.
stepmom or your guardian. And the reason I say that is because growing up, I always thought my mom, and I've talked to her about this, so it's not like I'm disclosing anything about my mom. I always thought my mom needed to be everything to me. And then in my 20s, I realized she can't be. And there's some things in her toolbox that she doesn't have. And just like I will have things in my toolbox that I just can't offer my stepchildren. And so I just think it's so important to find women that speak into your life because if not, you will put the pressure that your mom or your grandma or your guardian, a mother figure needs to be all those things. And you'll never have a beautiful, fruitful relationship because you have such a high expectation or a bar that's so high. So I recognized that in like my mid 20s. And so then I prayed and I just asked God, like, please bring women in my life that can pour into me, that see certain things in me that maybe they're familiar with or it's similar that they can coach me in that I'm more prone to because they were. And I started praying that prayer and it took me almost a decade before I was able to find women before I felt like the prayer was answered um, within our church. And what that looked like was consistency and steadiness. It looked like consistency within the way that they love their husbands. It looked like, and my mom is that. So I'm not saying, and none of what I'm saying right now is the lack of what my mom is, but I needed other women around me. And I looked around and I just thought, man, I need consistency. I need steadiness. I need a woman to speak and to even speaking, like, and help me stay on point and focused foundationally. So I'm not ego driven or prideful. And so,
Mm.
what does that woman look like? Like, is she humble and really pursuing this space that we share in speaking and inspiring individuals humbly? Or is she, a little bit of a diva and there's drama around her all the time, like just looking at those types of things. Looking at like how does she pray? I always watch my mom and in the way that she prays. And I just have so many sweet memories of walking down when I was a little girl and seeing her hold her journal and coffee and prayer and Bible. And I was like, I want more women like that. How do I find more women like that? Because my mom can't be all of it. And so finding women that are, when I say steady, steady in their faith and and also like not scared of questions. I think like Elisa is a mentor of mine and we used to be co-hosts together. Now we have a third host. So with God Hears Her. And she has been so steady in the way that she pursues the Lord in every adversity that she faces. Just like I witnessed with my mother. It's like, but it's this mentorship that's sweet. So I don't know. It's like my mom has to love me through my questions, but a mentor doesn't. And Elisa has been an exceptional mentor where I have so many questions and she just allows them to be there and allows me to self discover them. And I think that's also a really beautiful attribute of a good, godly older woman around that you can have around you is one that's not threatened by your questions, but leaves space for them. she does a really good job of that too. So I hope that answers your question. I don't want a little all over the place with that one, but
no, I love it because, you were open to it. You asked God. And so for you, then did you notice that was it a combination of God answering your prayer, which is sort of a mysterious thing, but also you seeking people out? Like, how did it come together?
yes. Okay. So I would say that I've always wanted to be, self-development. Like that was like what I was brought up in, like personal development. So like surrounding yourself with like books and podcasts and things like that was always kind of open to that. And I was always open to that. But when it came to like being in relationship with a mentor that can speak into me, I was actually very scared of. And I didn't actually seek it out. So when Our Daily Bread came to me and they said, "Hey, we think you'd be a really good candidate for God Hears Her podcast, like to be a host. Are you interested in something like this?" And I will say the timeline of their ask was probably a year and a half after that pastor that I shared earlier said those words to me. So I had a big gaping wound of being fully seen and then also sharing my stuff and seeing what a mentor is. Are they going to shame me? Like, are they going to make me feel bad and be like, "Whoa, that is bad, Eryn. You are disqualified," Or are they going to be like modeling second chances for me and what they've experienced or witnessed in the world? And so when Our Daily Bread came to me for God Hears Her, and Elisa was one of them, she was like the entry point for me to then all of a sudden realize, and this was like 5 years ago, or 2019. So 6 years ago, she was the entry point for me to like that was when God really answered the prayer, and he knew that he had to send the right person. So it was an answer to prayer, and it was not me seeking. I was terrified to be fully seen and fully known with somebody that could have an opinion, because I was so wounded by people that had opinions during my divorce that I was like, nope, I'm going to control this castle. Like there is a moat, and the moat is very long and deep.
Right.
But then like I did, after Elisa's relationship, I did seek out a spiritual formation group with 12 other women. It was actually during 2020, which was the perfect timing. And it was with Alicia Britt Sholey. And it was it was an experience for me that, first off, I didn't know I thought I was signing up for a one-on-one with her. And I ended up signing up with 12 other women for 12 months. And that showed me the importance of surrounding yourself with women that can speak into you too. So,
oh, yeah. Wow. Oh, that was actually going to be my next question. So you went right there already. Can we hover there for a little bit? Because you talked about finding, mentor kind of women or women that you can look up to. And I know for some women that might feel like a struggle, because I know these answers, well, just these people are all over the place in church. You just got to find one. But sometimes it's not that easy. So
that's so true.
And it's especially true of finding a group of women.
Yeah.
I talk to women very often. And in their own sphere, we sort of gather a kind of person. If someone finds Unhurried Living and they lean in, it's a kind of person. And they will often share with us that in their regular communities, they're unable to have the kinds of conversations they want to have for whatever reason. So sometimes it's hard for people to find a community that has a similar vocabulary or a similar need or desire for a connection or a kind of conversation or something. So can you just talk a little bit more about that? How would people these days, when we're so hyper-connected online, how would someone find a community?
Well, that one was so specific too, because I had read her book, Anonymous, and I didn't know, somebody had mailed it to me and I didn't know who she was. So I Googled the author, and then I was like, oh my gosh, her website. She like offers like to guide people through groups. And so I applied, and I thought I applied for the one-on-one for a year, and I ended up applying for the so God was like, yeah, girl, no, you ain't doing one-on-one. You need to be around multiple women. But I will say to somebody that's like, well, like, yeah, like I'm not going to look up, or like the chances of me looking on the back of a book, an author's name in Google and find that she has like a community group, like the chances are low. But I will say, like, if you are involved in the local church, I would encourage somebody to be brave enough to just ask the person that you're sitting beside their story and get to know them. Um, like, because I've been a part of community groups within our church, and they've formed, whether the church has organized that or if it's happened naturally by me just going, "Hey, do you want to get coffee?" Because they looked like an interesting person, and then that in turn was like, "Yeah, me and this girlfriend, we want to do a book club," and then that turned into, "Oh my gosh, what if the three of us did a Bible study?" And then the other one was like, "I have a friend that wants to do that," and then all of a sudden it became this organic evolution of 10. Now I have a group of 12 women separate from that course that I went through in 2020. This is just something that naturally happened in person. And it happened just like that. It's being curious and asking somebody for coffee and then taking the slow road. I think sometimes we so rush into wanting community fast. And I think community, if you want the healthy kind, is slow and it's steady and it's being consistent with what you have in front of you. So if you have one friend in front of you and then another friend, and then just letting it just maybe see how that grows and evolves, to then being patient enough to start something together, would be my encouragement. So, but if you're not involved in the local church and you're on social media and you follow a few people that are within your city, ask them out for coffee like you would somebody at your church, and then see how the conversation goes. It's kind of like, how like people will say like they therapist shop, like they shop for therapists, and like that therapist didn't work. I mean, do that with a random stranger for friends and community.
Right. You don't have to like be their best friend just because you went out for coffee one day.
Exactly. You could like, you know what?
Yeah.
Don't see us vibing ever again. And that's okay.
That's okay. Oh my goodness. I love your posture toward this. I love that you're really, because I'm asking questions and you're not just like giving this answer. You're saying, you know what? This could be really small and you could just talk to one person and then who knows what that could become, which I think that would be how the best things would happen anyway. Again, because it's organic, it's real, it's connected.
Yeah.
So I love that.
I had to build my community from scratch again because there was a lot of messiness after the divorce. And if somebody's walked through that, or if you walked with somebody through that, you will witness like friendships going one way or the other. And so to somebody listening to my story, like, I want you to know that I went from like zero to no friends and no community. And I was really hurt by the church, and I had a lot to work through and forgive and, understand where compassion lands and all of that. And I did have to put myself out there and start like dating friends again. Like, and that's hard when you're in your 30s because everybody is, it's either your college friends that you've had for a long time, or it's like community groups that have been fully established with memories. And so starting fresh with community and friends in your 30s is hard. And I would imagine in your 40s, it's hard. And in your 50s, it's even harder. And so I encourage you to stay curious and that you are worthy to be seen. I think I didn't believe that I was worthy to be known because of the baggage I carried, but you are absolutely worthy to be known and seen in community. And so it's going to require you to be really brave and just throw yourself in cold water like a goldfish. You may be paralyzed for a second, but you'll warm up and start swimming.
Well, I wonder if we're let's talk about that woman right now that you might be talking to that, or man, I mean, we've got all kinds of people listening right now. They can, whoever you are.
Yeah.
What if this person really is at that place of of recognizing that they aren't feeling worthy of love? What would you say to them right now? Of what would they open to next? What would they do next, or ask next, think next, feel next?
Yeah. So the person, man or woman, whoever's listening, that doesn't believe they're worthy of love, I would remind them of Matthew 11:28. That was a verse that came to me in 2017 when I felt at my lowest. I was like, there was a lot. It was like there was debt collectors, there was loss of friendships, there was just lots of mess. And I felt like, when I say debt collectors, like I was in so much debt, I had acquired so much. So I felt the equivalent of all of that. I felt not worthy of anything, not worth anything. But Matthew 11:28, I love the Message version because it promises that, it says, are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion? Come away with me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. When you feel unworthy of love, you do want to recover your life, right? And you are burned out on religion. Maybe religion has been a part of the reason why you feel unworthy of love. Or maybe it is a circumstance. But in that verse, God promises us that he will carry everything. He will not lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. And he'll show you and he'll teach you the unforced rhythms of God's grace. And that verse, I clinged to. Oh, it makes me emotional. I cling to it. It's my daily verse. Because like we talked about earlier, it is the dance of believing, not believing, believing, not believing. And that verse reminds you, like every day, to give all your pain and all your hardship and everything that has made you feel unworthy of love. That verse is saying, give it all to him and he will take care of it. Doesn't mean that it just all of a sudden stops, right? For me, it didn't mean like all of a sudden the debt collectors quit calling me, or that all of a sudden I had community and everything was bright and happy, but it did mean I had somebody to do it with. And if you believe you're unworthy of love, there's only one person that can walk with you through that, I believe, and that is the Lord. I think you can have community, and those are all antidotes that help be a part of the process. But there's only one person that you can surrender everything that you've been holding on to that has made you feel unworthy of love, and he wants it. He wants it so bad. And so I would encourage them in the Matthew 11:28 Message version to live that daily and invite God in to learning what the unforced rhythms of God's grace is, because he wants to show you that he is that type of God.
I love that passage so much. I mean, just the three words, come to me. Right? So inviting, so loving, and asking for connection. So good. Well, I'm wondering, Eryn, I'm just curious. I mean, what is your kind of rhythm of life? Like what are your spiritual practices? What keeps you refreshed in God and capable of continuing to pour out the way you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I'm a huge journaler. So I journal in a format, and I know a few different people have done this technique before, and I don't really know where it is the origin of. So Jem, you may know, but I journal every morning. What happened yesterday? How do I feel about yesterday? How do I feel about going into today? And all of this is like me talking to God. So I'm kind of journaling all of this whole process. And then, so how do I feel going into today? Anything I feel bad about? And then I ask God, how do you see me? And so I go through that, whether you can do it on, your computer and lock your notes. If you don't like to journal, if your hand gets crampy. But I'm a huge like pen to paper girl. I used to do it when I first started journaling again, because I went through like I journaled all the time, and then I never journaled, and then fell back in love with it. So I've gone through the waves of journaling. But when I got back into it, I typed it because I was like, my hand hurts so bad. I don't want to tell my feelings because my hand hurts. Don't let that stop you. But I will go through that process just to center myself in my relationship with the Lord, and just the discipline of talking to him, because the day can get away from me easily. Jump out of bed, I'll look at my emails. Oh my gosh, I forgot to respond to that, or this, or that is due, or this person needs this, and so I have to journal, and I notice a huge difference within just my ability to be present with myself, let alone other people, and the way I respond to them, and my patience, if I don't do that. And so I do that to keep myself grounded. And then scripture wise, I mean, I love the book of Matthew. It's one of my favorite books of the Bible. But I'll just dig into whatever I'm struggling with or curious with. I actually have it right here. It's the Spiritual Disciplines Handbook by
Oh,
Adele.
yeah. Adele
Yeah.
Calhoun.
Yeah. I have it right here.
Nice.
So I'll go through there. So if there's something that I'm specifically struggling with, I just love the topics and how Adele breaks things down for you to really unpack whatever you're wrestling with. So I'll journal and do that. But I do that. Also daily walks. I have a French bulldog, and I'll just wake up in the morning and take her out for a walk. And that in itself, sometimes I'll just listen to a good podcast that is maybe diving into something that just helps me realign with the Lord. But I love going for walks. Sometimes I will leave my phone at home and just talk with the Lord and walk with my dog. And that just being in nature and in sunlight is a discipline that is extremely important for me to have to function as a human being. So those are like two things that or I guess three things that are really like foundational for me.
Oh, good. I love it. And I'm hearing sort of head, heart, and body in there. So you've got all encompass, when you're, and what you're doing in the morning with journaling, I mean, it sounds to my ear like the formal practice of examine. I mean, the questions can vary on that, but you're looking back, which reflection is so important. I mean, that's so good. And then you're looking back with gratitude or just questions, and then you're checking with how you're feeling. I just heard a lot of goodness in that. There's so much, and you're doing it with God. I'm looking back, I'm assessing how I feel now. I'm thinking through the day, and I know God is with me, and we're talking about that. That just seems very holistic. So if you're looking for, I don't know, the examine goes way back. It's Ignatian spirituality. So,
cool.
So you're doing something that goes back just centuries.
Look at that. I knew it was a practice. I knew I didn't invent it. And I went to like some women's retreat, and they suggested a form of that. And so then I modified it a little bit but to that, and it connects with what we talked about earlier with shame. When you do it with God, you learn how he sees you, and it does help you wrestle with the things you feel guilty for or the things you feel unworthy of and why you felt unworthy of it when you do that. And there's been times, I'll go through dry spells and I forget, or life gets busy and I don't do that. And like I said, I see that, and I see it in my life. I see the lack of fruit, I guess you could say, by not doing that. But there's so much fruit in self-examination with God.
Oh, good. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Very good. Well, I'm wondering, maybe to wrap this up, maybe share with us, what do you sense God has for you next? Is there anything on your horizon or something that's out on your leading edge you want to lean into?
Yeah. Okay, so I have found myself, I love that question. I have found myself kind of on a hamster wheel of like working, paying bills, working, just the normal ways of life. And I say used to be because I had more margin for me to be creative and to enjoy a craft or a passion project but now as I continue to get older, you think through, how can I monetize this because of my margin and my priorities? And so, I some of these things that would give me life, I'd not made much time for. And I feel like I'm entering into a season of play where the headspace is not, how can I monetize something to help my family? Because my foundation, I have a foundation now, which has not always been the case as a young entrepreneur, that I feel like I've now entered into, I can play again. And so I think God is calling me into play and enjoyment in creating, and not enjoyment in monetizing. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. So you get back to that place of more like desire and instead of the grind. And that's a beautiful place to connect with, because that's a beautiful, long-lasting engine, actually.
Because I've only thought through the other lens, and for like 10 years. And so now I'm like, I just want to enjoy creating and not worrying about, and still like my finances be solid. And I think anybody that is pursuing something totally knows what I'm talking about.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
You're like,
well,
how
this
do
is a
I get
dance.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's
I mean, this is a dance. I dance this one all the time too, because again, we have our own nonprofit and we never want to just be about, grinding and pushing stuff out. Like that's absolutely not on brand.
Yeah.
But if you don't watch it, it could become that, like, because there are things to do and to produce or whatever. But always coming back to that place of, one of my mentors used to call it the fresh bread that God is baking in the soul of my life. Where's the fresh bread that I could give people? So it's not a beautiful image.
I love
like if my life is an oven, what is the fresh bread that God is putting in there that I could then share with people? And that takes intentionality, actually.
Mm-hmm. And bread has to cook for a long time, depending on how deep that pan is.
Depending on what kind of bread it is. For a muffin, I guess you can do it in 30 minutes.
Right.
But staying fresh and staying alive and keeping in touch with who you are and what God has given you to say or to be, and how you're going to share that, and how are you going to be fresh enough to because this is the question I keep saying, Lord, how long am I going to keep having something to say? Because we do emails every week, we do podcasts every week. I'm like, so unless I stay, grounded in Him in all the various ways that I have of doing that, there won't be fresh bread. I left to myself.
Yeah.
Left to myself, I only have so many ideas.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're right. Not on your strength or self-sufficiency, but on His.
Right. And it's very specific. God can inspire you through all kinds of ways. Like on a walk, you could be inspired by something that you want to create, right?
It's
some bird that you saw, or some smell that you smelled, some eucalyptus tree. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to be inspired by what God has made. So
you just have to slow down.
Just pay attention a little bit.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's all it is.
So, well, Eryn, this is so delightful. I love talking to you. I knew I was going to love it because I remember talking to you before and I loved it then. And I know I love it now. So
I'm honored. Thank you so much for such thoughtful questions. I'm so grateful for them. This was so wonderful.
Good. Yeah. Well, if anybody wanted to get you online, how would they connect with you and what you're up to?
Yes. So you can go, I'm Eryn Eddy on Instagram, ERYNEDDY. You can find So Worth Loving on Instagram and our website, soworthloving.com. It's just spelled SOworthloving.com. And that's where you can find me. And you can listen to the God Hears Her podcast, which you can find on Spotify or Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yes. And if you want to go back and search in 2020, I think it was. I'm on
right.
There.
That's right.
When Hold That Thought came out. Oh.
And Jen sent me the most beautiful canvas that I'm now having hung in my 9-year-old daughter's room.
And I have my canvas. My canvas is right there. It's very tiny.
It's right there.
It's basically scripture. You have everything. Yeah. God has given us everything for life and godliness. So, well, thank you, Eryn. What a delight.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for joining me on the Unhurried Living podcast. You can download free resources and learn more about us at unhurriedliving.com. And please subscribe and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. We'd also like to thank our partner, Life Audio. Check out their other faith-centered podcasts at lifeaudio.com. Blessings to you as you make your way.